Hello, 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 beautiful unicorns. Welcome back to Get Your Shit Together with Yana Kasperzak podcast. And today you're tuning into another incredible episode of our special series, Your Journey of Becoming. This is where real women share the messy, the unfiltered, the middle part of becoming who they're meant to be and not the highlight reel, the real thing. Because the truth and the reality is that your dream life does not start when everything is perfect. It starts when you have had enough playing small and you decide once and for all to go all in, to go for it, where you choose and work through ways of going from surviving to finally thriving. So grab your coffee and let's dive in because today I am sitting down live with Yarona Booster, who is an advanced certified life coach, certified speaker coach, TEDx speaker, and um, moderator, and two times international best-selling author with nearly 2 decades in early childhood, human development, psychology, and coaching. She helps parents, leaders, and speakers shift from reactive communication to clear, grounded, and deeply human connection, blending practical tools with emotional security and authentic expression. Yarona teaches people to create meaningful connections everywhere they show up, at home, at work, on stage, in friendships, and maybe even in a shoot with a stranger. So, Yorona, I am so happy to have you here. I have so many questions, even from the conversation that we had earlier before this. That's why I love these 15-minute warm-ups that I have with women.
Mm.
Part of me is like, we should just click live and like secretly stream these conversations. And then the other part of me is like, no, let's keep it just for us and have that private conversation a little bit as well. So
Yeah.
the question I always like to start with, because this is the
Mm.
Get Your Shit Together podcast, where we don't
Yeah.
really do all the fluffy things. We talk
Mm.
about the raw and authentic truth of what it actually looks like for
Oh.
you, for everyone, um, right, in life. But I want to know what it actually looks like for you on this journey so far. So the question I have is, when did you realize that the life that you were living wasn't
Mm.
actually yours and you begun to get your shit together?
Mm. That's a good question.
I got lots of them. Just wait.
So many questions. And it's so funny because as I'm thinking on my answer to this, I will say since I gave you my bio, I have become a three-time international bestselling author.
Ooh,
So
wow, that was
um
quick. That
so
wasn't that long ago.
no. So it's getting there. I think the moment in my life, and there's no one sedentary moment, life
No.
isn't doesn't work like that. There are crystalline moments of time in your life that definitely point you in certain directions, but there's no one singular second. It might be an event, but that event can span a time of,
Yeah.
a certain time frame. I would say for me, when COVID hit, I was still working in a traditional job with in my field, and we had to make so many sudden shifts, and it was such a mess, and it was so chaotic, and it was so insane as it was for most people.
Yeah.
One of the things that kept whispering to me, though, for well before COVID ever hit, was, "Am I making this job fit? Am I trying to fit into this job?
Mhm.
Or does it really truly, is it the right fit for me? Am I forcing? And I often felt like I used to call myself the squeaky wheel in my work. The Department of Health did not like me. I would stand up at the meetings and be like, okay, this is not working. This policy doesn't help for my staff. I was constantly, I never had any shame in addressing the elephants in the room, speaking up. But the thing is, I was speaking into what often felt like a void of yeses,
Mm.
where people would just yes me, yes, we agree, we agree, we agree.
Yeah.
And it would go into the void of nothing gets done, nothing, no ball moves forward. And I used to say this all the time, how they say the wheels of justice move slowly?
Yep.
Well, I learned a long time ago that the wheels of policymaking move backwards more often than not.
Hmm.
And it frustrated me to no end because we'd make these this policy would come in, and then my staff would get so upset. And
And
it's
where did
like,
you work?
and I ran an early intervention program. So that's a
Okay.
program for babies birth to three with developmental delays and disabilities. And
Okay.
in the States, we have both the federal funding and the state funding, and every state functions differently. In
Hmm.
New Jersey, that's where I live, we had both fed and state funding. But in some states, they only have fed funding, they don't actually have state funding. So these kinds of programs are designed to help people who are dealing with a child who's newly born. We're talking 0 to 3
Yeah.
with a potential delay or disability. And it was so frustrating to realize that the services we were trying to provide for our families were more often than not really hemmed and hawed in and restricted by the people who were making these policies behind a desk and had never ever been in the field.
Yeah.
And it was beyond frustrating for my staff. And I was always going to bat for them. But as things moved along, I was like, I constantly felt like my voice was being just shrunken, just
Yeah.
shrunken. Oh, Yarona, don't make waves. Oh, Yarona, why are you speaking? Like, oh, there's nothing we can do for that family. There's nothing we can do. So many years ago, I said, there has to be something more we can do for families.
Yeah.
And I started to really like, oh, that door opened for me. And I was always looking, well, what could we do? What could we do? Because I'm more of a solution oriented person than a problem oriented person. I'm not, as soon as we see the problem, I'm of that mindset of, okay, let's troubleshoot, let's figure out how we can fix this problem, not just let the problem continue. So then when COVID hit and things just kept going, I'm like, what else can I do? What else can I do? And it was really coming to that realization that there was so much more I could do if I wasn't in that place of being restricted by the governmental policies
Yeah.
and then the agencies needing to maintain their images and the this and the that. And there was so much politics involved
Oh, of
that
course.
I
Yeah.
was just like, I was just tired. And I said, gosh, I could do more. I want to do
Mhm.
more. I should do more. I can do more. And all of these things just kept coming and coming
Yeah.
and coming. So in 2021, I started formulating an exit plan. And boy, oh boy, was it messy.
Oh,
And, you
it's
know,
only fun when it's messy. It's not fun when it's not.
but the thing is, it's what's very interesting and what I know from a psychology perspective and an evolutionary processing perspective, humans are geared towards looking for patterns because they feel safety and security in patterns.
Yes.
So we don't feel safe and secure in change and chaos. We feel most safe and secure and capable of surviving when we can categorize things, when we can put things in with labels, when we can identify right off the bat what XYZ is.
Yeah.
But what I was kept experiencing in my personal life as I was going through this professional change was a lot of death, a lot of loss, a
Yeah.
lot, an excess of death and loss that kept slamming me in the face again and again, taking care of my loved ones as they were dying, literally being there until their last breath and
Wow.
not just being there, but being their primary caregiver. And as that was happening, and I kept seeing this just in my professional life, something sort of just sort of exploded together. It came and combusted.
Isn't that how
And
Earth
it
was
was
created
this,
too, right?
yeah. And it was
Big
this
Bang?
realization. It was this incredible realization that people are overwhelmed. People don't have places and spaces where they feel like they can have guided, trusted
Yeah.
resources or or really a foundational understanding of how humans develop so that when they are parenting, when they are leading, they can be paying attention to the people that they're leading, parenting, and guiding from a developmental standpoint, from a what is necessary for them to grow into their own.
Yeah.
And for me, it was actually loss, it was death. Death became the inevitable. It
Yeah.
really became the realization that, gosh, we truly are here for a finite amount of time. And while that can be very depressing to think about, it can also be extremely expansive.
Yeah,
because it
it's a
means that every
mindset.
day, every minute, every moment, every breath
Yeah.
really matters.
Yeah. It's the mindset, it's the attitude that we have and carry around. As we were talking earlier, it's the
Yeah.
meanings that we give the words. There's a dictionary
Yeah.
meaning of a word, and then there's the
Right.
meaning that we each have of a word.
Hmm.
For example, like earlier we were talking about my dog and how in Russia
Right.
we'll call her a suka, which means bitch, right? But
Right. Right.
it means a female dog, right?
That's what I
And
mean.
and that's the meaning for me. It doesn't have to be
Right.
bad, but you go to a dictionary, you'll have a different meaning for it. Yes, there is the meaning of the dictionary, but we as we grow and experience those
Right.
words through experiences, we have different meanings. So
Right.
the word death, this is what we're talking about here, it sounds like, is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you have a meaning around it. So I'd love to hear a little bit more of like
Yeah.
how and what kind of meaning you have that is helping
Yeah.
you to have so much smiling all the time as we were talking earlier as well,
Oh,
and no
I know.
smile lines. So
I know. I know. It's weird, but
I know,
it's
right?
all
Well,
good.
that's the family secret, which is not really a
Family
secret.
secret. Yeah. But, for me, what I came to realize is that loss is everywhere in our lives. And what I started identifying them as what I call foundational losses. When you're young, the losses are small. The loss of your favorite toy you left at Disney World or whatever, somewhere, or your favorite stuffed animal or something like that, or your favorite toy that broke and couldn't be repaired.
Hmm.
The little tiny losses, the loss of a good grade, even though you studied hard, not getting into the
Yeah,
program you wanted, losing a game, losing a friendship, and they keep growing, right? Losing a relationship, losing a job, losing a home, all of these things that hit us that are usually a part of life struggles could be seen as losses. And in the parenting world, one of the things that we recognize and understand in the natural life cycle of things, you, the parent, will go first. It won't always be that way, and
hmm,
sometimes it's devastating the other directions. But in the natural scheme of things, you will go first. Yet, how many people I hear when they lose their parents, and then somebody else says to them, "Gosh, I can't imagine what you must be going through. I can't imagine that."
hmm.
Well, you should, because you will lose your parents too.
I feel like it comes from a place of not wanting to admit that it's going to happen, like, as if
Yes,
happens to you but
yes,
not me. It's the acceptance of the reality, and they don't want to prepare
right,
for it beforehand, but they're preparing
right.
for it beforehand makes things so much easier.
Right. And here's the thing, we can raise our children with the inevitable of that without making them feel morose or
Yeah,
depressed or anything. Because when we teach the natural life cycle of things, everything has a life cycle. Everything
yeah,
does. And so when we expand that out, when we look at when we're little kids who need to start to learn how to take care of themselves, it's not just from a place of autonomy and self agency, but it's from a place of understanding that there won't always be someone here to take care of me,
yeah,
right? But we've raised in the last 20, 30 years, we've raised kids with parents who are so afraid of their kid experiencing any struggle, any hurdle, that they shelter them from all of those things.
oh
And I try to
yeah,
tell people, good Lord, you could be a multi-billionaire and you could have security around your kids, you could have everything, you could set them up for life, they don't ever have to worry about money, they don't ever, but there is one thing you cannot protect them from, and that is the loss of you.
yeah,
So because of that inevitability, looking at death from a place of the landscape of loss, from the landscape of how we experience that finality, means we have to actually be more understanding of the reality of it and accepting it for what it simply is, which will build resilience in our children for the inevitability that it is. My son is 8. He's already experienced 2 deaths in his life. And, you know, processing that with him was very interesting. It was it didn't negate the pain. This is what I really want people to know so much. I'm not saying there won't be pain and loss. There will always be pain and loss.
Yeah,
There
it's
will
part of the
always
journey.
be
Yeah,
discomfort. There will always be a mess in it. It will feel, you will feel the anguish, and that is as it should be because the thing that you've lost mattered to you.
exactly.
The
Yeah,
thing or the person mattered to you. What that says is that you're still alive. It
yeah.
actually shows you just how much you're alive, that you can feel that
Oh, yeah,
well of pain and suffering. And it's not for me or anyone else to tell you to get over it,
yeah,
but it is to say, but I can say you can live
yeah.
with it
We're
side
meant
by
to be.
side.
Yeah,
We are meant to live side by side with our grief, with our losses. We are meant to keep living full lives
yeah,
with them, not in spite of them, with them. And here's how
yeah,
I do this. I gave a talk a while back about this, moving forward with loss. What that means is, what life lessons did I learn from that person or that thing that I lost? Or what can I learn from this? What can I keep for me? The memories, the struggles, the awarenesses, the all these things, and 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 what can I honor in that loss?
yeah,
I think something that I see happen for a lot of people is they cut themselves off from it. I even see this in response. Somebody was telling me about having lost her brother 2 years ago. And one day she was with a friend and they were having, I don't know, they were having a meal together. And her friend said, and she was talking about her brother, and her friend said, "Aren't you over that already?" And I was like, ah, she's never experienced loss, has she?
yeah.
Loss is not something you get over, but it is something you can live with, and you
Yeah, it
can live a
becomes a
very
new
full life
normal.
with it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's not that your grief shrinks, it's that your life grows around your grief to
yeah,
buffer it, to gentle it, to alleviate some of the pain of it. It doesn't mean it won't come back. My sister and I were just having a conversation the other day, and it has been 11 years since my mother passed. And
yeah.
wait, 11? Yeah. Yeah, 11 years since my mother passed and 15 since my father passed.
Wow.
And and even longer since my niece passed, and and my brother only a few years ago, and so many people. But we were talking the other day, and and she said something happened. I can't remember what she told me had happened, but all of a sudden she felt the loss of our mother in her heart, like she just felt that wound.
Yeah,
Uh, and you feel it. When you feel it, it means that it matters,
yeah.
right? It
That
means that
you're
it's
human.
significant and you're honoring it.
Yeah.
And yet I hear so many people who desperately try to cut themselves off from that pain. But
Numb
I say,
themselves.
let
Yeah,
that pain, allow it in, because it will pass, it will dissipate. The best thing you can do is allow it in with support. When it's most fresh, you need support
yeah,
to deal with that. But even in the moments where it hits boomerangs back, and like it boomeranged into my sister's heart, and she was like, I just had to have a good cry. I had to have and as we're talking about language, I had to have a good cry.
yeah,
Because for some reason, a lot of people see crying as a weakness, crying as a, oh no, you're too weak,
yeah,
you're too mushy, you're too feely. A
yeah.
good cry is a cleansing
It
system for the soul.
heals. Water
It
is healing.
is.
Water is life. So why not let
Yeah.
the river do its
Yeah.
job? Let it run its course on our face because you know what? We all get to a point where we can no longer cry anymore. You're talking about losses. It's very close to me as well. Where when my husband and I were 22 years old, we lost a twin girl pregnancy. So we're both babies ourselves. And then the dog that we got for me to help me heal, he passed away on my 30th birthday of a heart attack. And I watched him right under my hands. That was just a snowball effect from that. When I was young, when
Yeah.
I was 8 years old, my mom was burying her youngest brother on my birthday. So loss is part of our life. When I was
Yeah.
8 years old, I did not understand loss or grief. To me, I did not see my uncle pass away. I did not.
Right.
I wasn't even in the funeral. right?
Ah,
So, and
yeah,
that's the other part where parents are doing their
yeah,
job. We all do the best that we can.
yeah.
Part of me is like, well, I should have been part of that. And the other part of me is probably shouldn't. Maybe the loss of the twins would have been easier ish,
Maybe.
right? But to
It
me,
still
that was
would
the
have
first
hurt
loss
if,
that was
yeah,
in my face. And I went through the whole
yeah.
process. We had the ambulance come and take me from home. My husband was in the car chasing the ambulance and in the hospital, gave birth to them, the whole process. Even at one point, they told me the cords, because the cords are so much smaller when they're just 22 weeks, and there was no heartbeats. We have no idea. I was already in labor, and one of the cords went back in. So they told me they might have to operate, and now here I am also high in morphine. I didn't even think I needed it, but I think they just gave it to me for numbing my emotions and myself. Whereas with the two
Mm.
kids that we have now, I gave natural birth a month early, but natural birth, nothing at all, like just me in the
Yeah.
bed and and a little bit of cussing, right? You gotta get it. You gotta, as I was saying earlier, you gotta exercise the demons to make them tired.
Yeah.
So they're exercised and they become a good doggy and they sit there because a good dog is a tired dog.
Mm.
So I love how you talked about death because this is a topic that so many do their best to avoid. And my
Yes.
approach as I was going through my healing journey, because we get here because of a certain need that we need for ourselves, for our
Yeah.
soul. And
Yes.
for me, it's it became really important to visualize myself as an old woman sitting in a rocking chair of like
Mm.
111 years old, and then happy and joyful, me asking, it's like, the fuck did you do? How did you get here? Please tell me. Give me
Right.
the roadmap. Give me the step by step. Give me the know-how. Give me the secrets,
Right.
right? And then she would tell me a
Mm.
little by little of what I am doing, what she did to get there, where she's completely like at peace and joy and proud of every part of her life, including the
Yeah.
loss of the twins. And it took me 15 years because we
Yeah.
had them before our daughter, right? That was our first pregnancy, just twins, and doesn't even run in the family and identical. So, like, how did that
Mm.
happen, right? So, if
Yeah.
something happened to one, something would happen to the other because they just shared a really thin wall.
Hmm.
And like all of these things, and it took me 15 years to
Right.
finally heal, as I would say, because they took pictures, I looked at the pictures, and then all of a sudden, for the first time,
Mm.
I didn't see myself. I saw my husband. And that's where
Oh.
like it became like even more so
Wow.
eye-opening,
Yeah.
where I've always saw other people, but seeing them in a much
Mhm.
more broader view, that it's no longer like, they talk about looking through a little tube, a little tunnel, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
now it's like seeing it through a bigger
Uh,
tunnel.
well, what I talk about is perspective taking, right? So
Hmm.
any given experience can have an infinite possibility of different perspectives to that
Yeah.
experience. I say this all the time. If you have 1,000 people on a train and that train derails, you'll have 1,000 different stories of what happened.
Oh yeah. And then the
Because
one that was
and
driving.
Yeah, yeah, but you get to decide that what that experience means to you at any given moment.
Yeah.
And I think this is really important because some people land on a decision and then they go, that's all that was.
Yeah.
And they're limiting
They're
themselves from being
closed.
able
Yeah.
to learn from that experience. Like for when I was taking care of my father when he was dying, after he passed, I said, and I hadn't taken care. My niece was a different story. All of my losses have been very uniquely different stories. But after he passed, something that kind of woke up in me. And again, this was sort of at the start of like where I got to do something different in my life too.
Yeah.
I realized that I could choose to be angry and bitter and resentful for the fact that he didn't get to see me have a child, that he didn't get to that he didn't get to be a grandfather to my children, that he lost him in my 30s. And I was like, this sucks. This is really, really hard. And I I was like, no, this shouldn't be, right? But then I realized something that I could choose how I viewed that experience, what I could take from it. That's the choice I get. I say to people all the time, we don't get control over the things that happen to us in our lives or the things that happen around us in our lives, but we can control how we choose to move forward with them.
Yeah.
We can make the choices about how do I want to see this experience? What do I want to see it for? And I could acknowledge the pain and the anguish that I went through. I could acknowledge the exhaustion of just literally being up every 2 hours to give him medication, especially at
Yeah.
the end. And, because I was his literal primary caregiver, I could acknowledge, the physical toll, the mental toll, the emotional toll, but I could also acknowledge how honored I felt to take care of him,
Wow.
how humbling and how vulnerable it was for both he and I for me to take care of his intimate needs.
Yeah.
How beautiful and incredibly selfless that experience was, because it wasn't about the self, it was about this bigger picture that we can't fully comprehend until we've been through something like that.
Yeah. It's
We
true.
can never fully comprehend the bigger picture. Well, I don't think it's for us as humans to be able to comprehend the bigger picture, but we can know that there's a bigger picture out there. And we can choose to get more curious and say, what can I learn from this experience?
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned is, I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to be resentful. I want to live my life the way that he would have, the best way possible. I want to live my life with happiness and hope. Because I even saw it in my father as he got older. He used to be a very hopeful person. And then things happened in his life that just made him angry, also made him bitter,
Yeah.
made him just like annoyed. And I even remember having a conversation with him one day and saying, like, all this anger, he was going to anger management classes because he just couldn't hack his anger. And I was like, well, all this anger, it's not good for you. It's not good for you
No.
physically. And he said, I'm too old to change at this
No
point.
one is too old.
And I'm thinking to myself, but you did change. You changed and got here because you used to be a different
Yeah.
person, which
Exactly.
means change is also, ironically, one of the only inevitable things we can
It
experience in
is.
life.
Yeah.
Literally change. It is the only
Exactly.
inevitable factor of life. Change. That's all we get. Life is constantly in change, constantly in flux, constantly moving and growing and doing its thing around us.
Mhm.
We get to decide how we engage with that change. That's our decision. How do I engage with this particular change, this particular experience, this particular this? And I always think about it from a learning perspective, because I'm always like, when we learn, we're in exploration and curiosity.
Yes.
Learning is not about judgment. It's not about fear. It's not about what will this get me, right? It's not about gains or nets or anything like that. It's literally just, ooh, here's an opportunity for me to learn something new. All right, let me dive into it. Okay. But people are afraid of that because in learning and curiosity and exploration, there's discomfort too.
Of course. Yeah.
And as I said before, humans don't like discomfort and change and something
Exactly.
different because it doesn't allow them to categorize it immediately. But when we move from that survival instinct into a growth instinct, into a growth reality, a growth mindset, it changes
Yeah.
everything for us. And we are by nature, yes, our survival brain is much, much older than our growth brain by a couple 100,000 years, in fact.
Yeah.
And so we know that evolutionarily. That's okay, though. We have the growth brain, right? It's here for us. Just because it's younger doesn't mean it's not beneficial. Look at what we've accomplished as a species.
Yeah.
If we didn't have the growth brain, which I call it the growth brain, it's the prefrontal cortex, which is about 60,000 years old. And the older survival mechanism brain, the amygdala and the brainstem are between 500 and 600,000 years old. So yes, we're working at a little bit of a deficit, but it doesn't mean that we get to the point where our prefrontal cortex is booming and it's like, oh, my life is now changing around me and I'm comfortable in change, because that's the reality of us all.
Yeah.
When you get comfortable in change and chaos, when you go, oh, I'm going to flow with this, I'm going to learn from this, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
get curious about this and I'm going to stay present to the experience
Yeah.
because, gosh almighty, I get to have this
Yeah.
experience.
Being open to it is
Isn't that,
important
yeah,
because if we're
like,
not
and being
open, we
grateful
won't learn.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
always say presence is a three-part internal posture. It's a mix of gratitude, awe, and curiosity,
Hmm.
all working in conjunction to keep you awake in your life. And
Yeah.
gratitude is the grounding process. It's the thing that says, I get to be here in this experience. I get this opportunity.
Yeah.
And awe is that widening, that ability to realize there's something bigger happening here. Let me be open to it. And
Yeah.
curiosity is that thing that gets you to lean into it and go, whew, what can I learn if I stay right here and now in this moment? And that's what true presence is. It's giving us that opportunity to be with all of it in the moment, not pushing back into judgment from the past, from past experiences, or fear and worry of the future.
Hmm.
We don't have to be there. We can
Yeah.
just simply be here. So that's a really long way. I didn't answer a question, but that's really what I come at death with and loss. And I want people to understand that because once you get to that stage where you realize this is inevitable. So with every
Yeah.
breath I get right here and now, what do I get to do? What do I get
Yes.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's an opportunity here? How can I make an opportunity in this shitty situation sometimes? And
Sometimes.
learning and remembering to live that loss is inevitable. Now, nobody
Yes.
get my favorite phrase when I was in my dark time was nobody gets out of life alive. Like,
My mom used to
and
say that
that's
all the
so
time.
true. And I kept replaying. I'm like, nobody gets out of this alive. Like, and I was
Right.
living feeling like I was dead because of the whole process that I went through.
Yeah.
I realized what I did
Yeah.
without knowing, and then that's how I learned I'm an empath. I took on
Yeah.
the death of my dog, and because I literally had my hand on his heart, the other hand on mine, and I watched him,
Ah,
right? So I took all
yes.
that in, and I felt like I can almost like explain what death would feel like
Yeah.
as a human being dead and being trapped in the body, but at the same time learning. I watched so everything I could get my hands on watching about life after death. I watched it to really understand. Even people who went on, like, I call them trips, but like psychedelic trips, DIT trips, watching
Yep.
those people and
Yeah.
hearing their stories. I don't need to go on those, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just hearing enough, and the fact that when they come back from a trip, there was a recently my husband sent me this a little clip from a podcast where a man, he went on a DMT trip for 5 hours. And normally it's about like 5 to 15 minutes, but he was there for 5 hours. He had a really hard time coming back to reality
Mm.
because my takeaway was that where he was felt so much more real than any of this. So
Right.
imagine coming
Well,
back to like a
yeah.
charade.
Right. That makes sense. Because here's the thing, right? Who Chardine said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And I think
Exactly. I
that
love
that's
it.
really, but here's the thing, having a human experience doesn't mean making it less than the spiritual
Exactly.
being.
We're supposed to be
It
making
means
more
make the
than.
most of, right, make the most of this human experience we have. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important. And because death is a part of that process, my son and I have processed it and he's incredible. Like, and he knows, he's very well aware. Our cat died when he was 4 or just before he turned 4. And we were having this conversation after she passed because it was hurt, it was painful. We processed it, we talked about it, we really, we talked about how it hurts and how we miss her and the different little things and all of those things. And one day he was, and this is where I conjoin the how children can accept loss in life,
Yeah.
because the adaptive self-help skills that are required to take care of oneself mean by nature that somebody else is not going to be there to do it for you. And that's that thread that I was saying before. So one day, he was struggling to put on his shoes. He was 4. He was struggling and
Yeah.
he was like, Mommy, you do it. And I said, Connor, I will sit here with you until you get it done. No problem. I'll give you the tools you need to get it done. We've got the little shoehorn. You try this. but I'm not going to do it for you. This is your responsibility. It's your turn to do it for yourself because mommy and daddy are not always going to be here to do it for you.
Hmm.
And as we moved into that conversation, I said, how are you going to feel when mommy and daddy are no longer here? And he said, oh, I'll be okay. I said, yeah. I said, yeah, because you'll always live here in my heart.
Yeah, it's true.
And I said,
Life after death. There,
right.
we don't just disappear because energy
We
cannot
don't.
be
The energy doesn't
destroyed. It can only be
right. Energy can't
transformed.
be destroyed. Right. So the thing is though that he got the messages I had been sending. And in that moment he understood. He really embodied that. When we lost his grandfather, my father-in-law, he was 6. He was almost 6. And he cried and he told me his heart hurt and we cried about it and then he kind of calmed down a bit because I just stayed with him in that experience. And then he stopped and kind of stopped and he goes, I'm really sad, but maybe it's not such a bad thing since grandma and Gapka full all the time. And I was
Looking at the bright side, I
I'm
love it.
like,
The silver lining.
because what he did is he made it make sense for him.
Yeah,
It wasn't like a toxic positivity. It was a, where can I find a different perspective on this sad experience? It doesn't
yeah.
take away from the sad. And I see so many people who just want to wallow in their pain and suffering. They want to
It
wallow in their
becomes their
victimization and their
personality really
victim.
quickly too.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait. Are you happy wallowing in your sad and your discomfort and your pain and your suffering and your victimhood? Are you happy with that? Does it
Mhm.
make you happy and content with life? Does it give you peace and joy? Because if it doesn't,
Yeah,
maybe, just maybe, you could shift this just a tiny bit, just a little shift on the perspective. Just like a child who's able to see the passing of his grandfather, whom he loved, with a little different perspective taking.
yeah.
And I think what's so important about this is that I call it, so I termed this thing called, that's in my parenting book that I wrote, called the psychic umbilical cord. And
Hmm.
between parents and children, we have this umbilical cord. And you were talking about that before. And
Yeah,
while it stretches, in this instance, the
it does.
psychic umbilical cord stretches, it never severs, even once the vessel is gone,
Yeah,
because it
we're
becomes a
connected.
part of the piece of who we are.
Yeah.
And I remember that viscerally when I was holding my son when he was an infant, and I looked down and I saw my mom's hands in my hands. Like I could actually see my mom's hands, like just because I have her hands to a degree, right?
Hmm.
They are mine, but they're also hers in the way they look and the shape of the nails and the shape of the hands. And I saw that moment and I'm like, wow, my mother is holding my son. And it was this beautiful moment to cherish. And then I've seen it in other ways where my mother suddenly comes out in me and says, like I'll say something and I'm like, gosh, that sounded like my mother, you know,
Yeah, we see
or I'll do
ourselves or
something
our
and I'm like,
mothers in us.
right, or I'll do something and I'll be like, oh my gosh, that was my father, totally my father.
Yeah,
And it's that psychic umbilical cord that tethers us together forever. We never lose it. It stretches and it lengthens and it has to as we grow and because we move on to our own lives. But once it's securely attached, we can never, it's never gone.
hmm,
It's never gone from us. And I really wish that people would get this perspective on death and life and loss. Because
yeah,
once they do, everything opens up,
yeah,
everything changes, and it becomes such a more spacious living because you don't feel hemmed in by the inevitable death of you or
yeah,
your loved ones. You actually feel like you have more space and room to have this human experience. So,
yeah.
yeah. Ah,
And I also love how when we feel, it's really just a reminder that we are alive. Because when we're not, there's no more feelings. There is there's none of this human experience. It's only here and now. And since my next question is actually perfectly aligned-ish, since we're talking about death, just talking about death in a little bit of a different concept, in the concept of the self. That we as the
mm,
self, I refer to this also as spiritual awakening, where the spirit
mm,
awakens each and every time we go through this uh, death and rebirth
yeah,
stages. And for you, I'd love to know what version of you had to die so the woman that you are today could finally live.
The control freak.
Ooh, tell me more, because I listen, every single human being, especially the women here, ladies lean in because let's be honest, all of us are control freaks. Let's go.
It's true. It's true. Women love the idea. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's a generalization. I know some women who don't, but honestly, I've been more of the traditional type A person trying to control the things in my life. So I had to literally let go of that control, of that idea. I call it the fallacy of control. It is a complete fallacy that we have any control over our existence. We
Right.
really don't.
We
We
don't.
really,
We think
really
we do. It's an
don't.
illusion. Like,
It's such an illusion. And we think, oh, if I just can do this perfectly today, everything will line up and I'll just perfectly. Da, 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 da. But the problem is, every time we have this fallacy of control, and every time something inevitably comes in to disillusion us of that, what happens is we drop
no.
into disappointment, we drop into anger, we drop into resentment, we drop into frustration, we drop into stress fatigue, we drop
Yeah.
into all of these places that are not healthy for us. So we drop because we're desperately seeking this control measure that we're grasping on with both hands. Every time it gets whipped out of our hands, we're like, ah, and it moves us into these places and spaces that are really unhealthy for us. I was reading what's that book? It's called When the Body Says No. I know there's another one, The Body Keeps the Score, but When the Body Says No was written by Dr. Gabor Mate, and it was written many years ago, and it's still very relevant. But one of all the research that's showing people with cancer, people with different certain types of diseases and stuff like that, every single one of them being researched was found to have had who they say themselves, oh, I've had a very stressful life, a very horrible life, a very da da da, or they've had this struggle and that struggle and this struggle and that struggle that they never actually moved past. They carried those struggles, the burden of those struggles with them, and and now they're dealing with a physical ailment. And what it really shows is your body holds on to those things of which you're
That's
not willing to mentally let go of. And in control, in the fallacy of control, that's a big piece of it. We are thinking that we can control the experiences we've had. So I find this very interesting.
mm-hmm.
When we've had it, let's say somebody cuts us off.
Oh yeah.
We're driving somewhere and somebody cuts us off. And here we were driving. Somebody cuts us off. They just took away our control of we were doing this thing.
How dare
And
you?
now we're, how dare, I'm swearing, why are people,
Ooh,
and
if
then they
this was
move into
Rush, I
this,
would ram you.
and you move into this spiral thinking process. Why are people such asses? What's wrong with people? Why can't people be better drivers? You move into this constant, this conditioning of, I am angry, I'm angry, I'm so angry, I'm bitter. And it's all because you lost control in that moment of thinking you had control in the first place to
Right.
ensure nobody cuts you off,
How dare you?
and
Yeah.
you lost it and you're angered by that. But when you realize, well, they cut me off, that's a them problem. Oh, maybe they didn't see me,
Yeah. Or
right?
maybe
Maybe they
when
weren't
somebody's in
looking.
labor.
Maybe somebody's in labor. Maybe this, maybe that. Who knows? But when we shift our thought process to, don't know why they cut me off, but they chose to do that. That's on them, not on
Yeah.
me. That was the choice they made, right? And it changes the nature of the way we think we have that control. And then we lose, and then we're like, okay, like when I am scheduled for a meeting or a conference call or this or that, and somebody's not showing up or somebody's running late or something happening, I'm like, great, okay, what can I do in the meanwhile? Okay,
I know.
I'm, you know, I'm like, oh my God, I have this to do. Let me take care of that really quick. Okay, let me do this. As soon as something happens to shift me out of what I thought was going to happen, I go into what else?
Yeah.
What else? And it shifts away from being in that mindset of, ah, I couldn't control this situation. Like now it's going to ruin my day and everything else is going to really, will it really ruin your day? Or are you just magnifying the loss of control that you have?
Yeah.
Because I came right back to loss. You lost your perception, the fallacy of control that you had in that moment. And now
Yeah.
you've lost it. And what you really need to do is learn how to simply say, that sucks. Okay. So what can I do now? I got this
Next,
to do,
right?
that to do. I got to, oh, you know what? Actually, I need to take a walk. I need to go get something to drink. I
Yeah.
need to take a breath. You know, it's okay to be angered in that moment, but anger was never meant to be something that stays with us.
No,
It was a
yeah.
survival mechanism to help us stay alive. A
Mm-hmm.
threat would come. Fear and anger are so close. They're just measured in they barely a breath between them.
Mm-hmm.
Fear and anger, it's very interesting. Usually you can find fear beneath anger.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
much always fear is the incentivizer for anger.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about it like this. You get angry, right? But also that person cutting you off, it could have hit you. So there was a moment of fear, but it pushed you into anger when somebody doesn't show up. Fear of, oh God, what if this doesn't happen the way I wanted it to happen? What will happen to me?
Yeah.
Fear is always that thing that comes from our survival instinct.
Mm-hmm.
So anger sits right on top of that because when we can bring in righteous anger, we don't have to deal with the situation as it stands. We can just explode at it.
Yeah. And try to get control of it in that way. Anger is another way of trying to get control. And I've
It
even heard
is.
that physically we can stay angry for 2 minutes. Anything past that, it's you pushing it,
Yeah.
you forcing it, you doing it. And if you do it even longer, it can become your whole entire personality. And nobody really
Yes.
wants to be an angry person. This is exactly what
Yes, it's
probably
true.
happened to your father, you were saying, right? That had to go to
Yes.
anger management, that you got angry at
He,
something
yeah,
and you held on to it. Like
he fed
m-
it. He fed the
I like
beast.
I get like images, right? And for me, the image comes to mind is Homer Simpson and Bart and trying to choke Bart,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
this is where you're trying to control the situation and you
Yeah.
can't. And then as
You
you're
can't.
talking about control, right?
Yeah.
And letting things go, for me, it's also quotes that help me to remember
Mm,
things and really have meanings
mm,
beyond just like a minute or two conversation. But what you're talking about is reminds me of there's no point of crying over spilt milk. So if
mm.
somebody cuts me off, do I get upset? Sometimes, right? I'm a human being. I have my moments when I'm really tired or already
Yep,
annoyed or
yep, yep.
frustrated, cut me off. But I also recognize that it's coming from my ego, from the self. How dare you? Do you not know?
Yes.
Like I'm driving
Right.
here. Do you not see me? It's so rude. Don't you know you gotta stand in
Right.
line and wait for your turn. Don't cut in front of
Yes.
the line, right? This is where like the messages that I received
Right.
growing up from parents, what's right and what's wrong, and it's my mind trying
Yep.
to control that you're doing something wrong, right? You're so rude. You're so
Right.
impolite. When I mean,
Right. Right.
other days I'm fine. Like, go right ahead.
Yeah, and a little getting a little peeved and aggravated is not the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
But getting it to become feeding that beast of anger does not help you. Yes,
Yeah.
physiologically, we when we have an emotion, we physiologically we feel it for about 90 seconds to 90 seconds
Yeah.
to 2 minutes. After that, it dissipates physiologically. And then our thought process is what keeps feeding the beast of whatever that is. So, but even in those moments where you're a little aggravated and peeved, sometimes you can find fear there too,
Oh
because
yeah.
somebody cut, because let's say somebody's going super slow and you have to get somewhere, right? And you're
Yeah,
like, oh
nothing
my
slowing me
God,
down.
what is wrong with this person? Why can't they move faster? Ah, what is wrong with all the slow people around here? Right.
Right?
And it's really the fear I won't make it to the place that I need to make it to on time. And more even deeper than that, it's what's called our social survival instinct. What's deeper than that, if I don't make it to that place on time, whoever is there will perceive me as less than because I didn't do them the courtesy of showing up on time.
Yes.
So it's actually triggering our social survival instinct that says, I've got to show up and be and show everybody I'm respecting their time. I'm respecting, I'm like, I'm here on
That am
time
I
and
good
everything like that. I
girl?
don't I don't want to be perceived as less than
Yes.
because in the social survival world, every human being has an instinctive need to belong, be accepted, and be appreciated.
Hmm.
And as a result, if we do anything inherently that pings any of those things, that like potentially has damage to any of those things, what happens? We fear being seen as less than, being not acknowledged, being not appreciated, not accepted, not belonging. Oh, look at this person showing up late. Oh, right. We all have that, except for sociopaths. We all have that, or
Mhm.
psychopaths. We all have that.
Yeah.
And that what's so important with that understanding is that if it comes back to social acceptance, then because we as are social creatures, it also comes to a place of self-worth survival, which
Mhm.
is the reality that you are the only person who has to live with yourself from birth till death.
Yep.
And
Yep.
in truth, if something pings your social survival and somebody says you don't belong, then your self-worth goes, oh, like you're not being appreciated. Oh,
Yeah.
who am I to myself? My worth feels less than.
Yeah.
And that is really scary for people. So to go back to this control thing, man, oh man, when I finally let go of control of this idea that I had the ability to even control things, I was like, oh my God, I felt like this weight lifted off my shoulders. It felt
Yeah.
like I could finally live and take a full breath in
Yeah.
every moment. I was like, wow, it's marvelous.
I
That is
know.
marvelous. And it didn't happen all at once, because
No,
here's the reality. When we get to that crux of what do we have to let go of, it still comes back to us because we're patterned creatures. So we've carved this neuroplastic, this rut in our brain, in our mental life, that things will keep falling back to until we cover it over.
hmm
So that fallacy, that control rut that had been in my life, and really that it was a massive crater of a divot of like, I got to be in control. I needed to actively take steps to function to get out of it.
Yeah.
So whenever I found myself falling back into it and going, I need to be in control here, or I'm aggravated because somebody missed a meeting, or whatever, I had to actively say to myself, ooh, there's your control monster trying to come make his
Yeah.
presence known, or your control rut, your creator going like, yeah, come back here. It's safe here because you know this,
It's familiar.
right?
Yeah.
Not because it's healthy for us, but
Yep.
because it's familiar. We
Yep.
do as humans a lot of things that are unhealthy, but they're familiar,
Yeah. And that's why
and
they
we
feel safe
prefer
because we know what to
familiarity.
expect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our preference for familiarity over healthy is what keeps us
Exactly.
going back to the same patterns again and again until we create actively new patterns. But it
Yeah.
takes a practice to create that. It doesn't happen overnight. And in
No.
this day and age, unfortunately, where a lot of things are instantaneous, we have this natural expectation that, gosh, just because I said I was going to do this thing, I'm going to start exercising. And then you miss one day and you're oh, clearly I can't stick to it. I will go back to not exercising.
Yep.
And we beat ourselves up for it. And we're like, no, let me just go back to my old habit because this one's uncomfortable. This
Yeah.
one's new to me and I haven't figured out how to be successful in it yet. So I'm just going to go back
Yeah.
here. But that's not helpful for us
No.
because it's not healthful for us.
Yeah.
We have to understand, okay, what's the healthiest pattern I can create? How can I create it with intention, with practice, and with grace for when I accidentally or purposefully jump back to the old path?
Yeah.
Because that's the worst thing we do. We beat ourselves up so bad when we move backwards into an
Yeah.
unhealthy pattern. We are so good at saying, God, you're a loser. Whatever,
Yeah.
you're something's wrong with you. You can't hack this. Don't keep trying.
hmm
Because we're in a learning mode and we're trying something. It doesn't mean we're less than if we
Yeah.
fail at it, or when we have moments of failure, when we have moments of struggle, when we have moments where we revert back, because we are so compassionate for other people, but we are
Yes.
terrible, terrible at self compassion. We're
Yeah.
terrible at it,
But
right?
because there's already practice, because if we are so compassionate for other people, now it's just taking how we are towards others and turning it towards ourselves.
Right. But people
Yeah,
struggle with that. And a
exactly.
big part of that is because we are social creatures. We are hyper
Yes.
social creatures. So we're very fixated on other. And in fact, in relation. So when we're born as infants, if we were born in complete isolation, we would act as very animalistic. We would become animals. We wouldn't know how to behave
Yeah.
as a human. The reason we know how to behave as a human is because there's another human there showing us how to
Mhm.
behave. We are relational in that way. We need that mirror to be able to see how do I adapt these behaviors? How do I function this way? Unfortunately, a lot of us pattern really poor behaviors from the people we're mirroring, from the people we're learning from.
Yeah.
And that's where my book comes in, is to help people understand, okay, as a parent, what signals are you sending to your child? What signals are you receiving from them? Understanding the signaling patterns helps you better understand, oh, what signals do I want to send to my child? Not
Mhm.
just what do I want to say, but what do I want to do? How do I want to behave non-verbally with my child? That's
Yeah.
really important. So,
Yeah, it's almost like the programming that you want to give them, what programs you want to give them that you're going to be running off potentially for the rest of their life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So for you, what would you say was the biggest lie you were living that felt normal until it broke you?
The biggest lie?
Yeah. Because, we all lie to ourselves, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's really funny because I hold integrity as one of my highest values.
Mm.
And so I'm not that good at lying to myself because I'm like, what do you, I beat myself up when I do it. But I'd have to say probably the biggest lie. Ah, the biggest lie would probably be centered around the accolades and accomplishments
Ooh,
that I didn't yet have.
okay.
The biggest lie I kept telling myself, because I did so much schooling, but I never completed. I didn't get my license as a psychologist. I didn't do, I didn't go, I did a lot of schooling, and then I just stopped shy of doing all of the things that I needed to do to get to the next level, to finish my
Okay,
master's, to do
yes.
this, that, and
I
everything.
can relate.
So I had so much because as a lover of learning, which I didn't even realize just how much I loved learning. I love the learning process. Didn't like so much the end goal processing because I felt like that was
Mm,
pressure that I didn't want. I just wanted to learn and I didn't want to have
yeah,
those things. So
yeah,
because I didn't
get it.
have all of those things at the time that I was making these shifts and transitions, I was like, well, who am I to speak on these subject matters? Even though I've probably at this point done like 30,000 hours of learning in my fields of study. Um, and and I was like, okay, so I've come that far. So what does that mean? I can only speak to the stuff where I got my degree at, and then I can't speak to the stuff I learned beyond that. And I kept trying to convince myself that that was the case. And I even had somebody long time ago who sort of tried to beat me down about that too.
Yeah, that doesn't
And
work.
yeah, and so her voice came up in my brain as well about that, where it was like, yeah, who am I? I don't have all of these letters behind my name, blah 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 blah, and and that lie kept me feeling small even as I was reaching for something bigger. It kept me feeling insecure about what I was reaching for until I realized, wait, I know. And I started seeing something. I had so many staff. I had at certain points I had upwards of 100 staff, and so many of them had their masters, their doctorates, their this, their that, and the other. And the amount of times I had to explain things to them, I
Mm,
had to break things down for them, and I had to help them understand something that to me felt so simple. And to me it felt simple, and I understand. I'm not beating them up about where they didn't understand things, but
mhm.
what it helped me realize was that just because we can learn doesn't mean we can teach. Just because we can understand something doesn't mean we have the capacity to pass that information along well to others, and the knowledge and distill the wisdom so that others can glean it. Just because we can accomplish something because we're reaching for a goal and we can have a checklist and check mark that I did that test. I did that test. I did that. I read that full book I know all the answers. I'm going to go do the test. Okay, I got that. Those are check marks. Just because we can do all of those things doesn't mean we can function optimally in the world.
Yeah.
That it has nothing to do with our functionality on the ground.
True.
And as I started to realize that more and more, I was like, okay, all right, this is, and it's funny, there's a person, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he would very openly say, like, I didn't do college, I didn't do any of this stuff, but one of the smartest people that I've ever heard speak, that I've ever like listened to, and it was not because he was throwing information at everybody, all the information he knew. Sometimes he would, for sure, but it was also because he had the ability to distill the knowledge and clarify it and give it to people in a way that was like, I'm seeking to help enlighten
Digestible.
you, to
Yeah.
give you this, to help you digest this better. And that's when I realized it was like, wow, okay, there are all sorts in the world, and it takes all sorts to live in a world.
Mm.
And that means that it's not helpful for me to make comparisons to others and what others have accomplished, because I will always be able to find myself as less than if I want to.
Yes.
I will also always be able to find myself as more than if I want to. So I prefer not to do either of those things. And what I do these days is I simply compare myself to who I was yesterday.
Yeah.
How am I growing? Yarona, how have you grown today?
Hmm.
And checking in with myself. Oh, did you learn something new today? Awesome. And I'm just comparing myself to myself. And that helps me grow exponentially. There's no limit to that growth.
Yeah. It's attitude, right? It's the
Yeah.
attitude, it's the approach, it's the mindset. I call mindset is literally like a deck of cards that we get, that we're given, that
Yep.
we pick up over our lifetime, and then over time we don't have to hold on to this particular deck, this particular card in the deck. You can
Right.
replace it, you can rewrite it. And
Yeah.
n- even if you write in stone, if you have sanding paper, you can sand the shit out of that stone, you can polish it, and you can rewrite. So nothing is really written in stone either. And we all have these moments where we get to a point, I believe everybody needs to go through enough suffering in order for them to finally change. And the way that
Yeah.
I've learned is that when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, only then do we seem to finally take action. Not everyone, of course.
Yeah.
There's different types of personalities. I know there's four color
Right.
personalities. There's even the animal kind of personalities,
Oh, there's
which
so
we're not
many.
gonna get into. But like, right? There's different people.
Uh,
There's how many people in the world? There's like one personality for every person. If we really could
Right.
have,
Well, actually, there was a study done about this, how unique every human being is.
yeah,
They did a study about this. Yeah, about 13 years ago or so. They did this
yeah,
study. They figured out how unique every person is based on their genetic makeup, like what it took to actually get them into the world, based on all the people who
hmm,
had come before, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, where they were born into the world, when they were born, and then experientially what they're going to experience. And we're talking about the micro experiences to the
yeah,
macro experiences, everything. And they figured out that every human is as unique as 1 in 400 trillion humans.
yes, I remember seeing that. Yeah,
And we don't actually have 400 trillion humans in recorded history yet.
yeah,
So that is to say, every human is completely unique, which means that what's going to work for me might not work for you and might not work. And you might need to take a little piece from here and a little piece from here and a little piece from here to make your deck complete.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
for
it.
you, what was your enough is enough moment where you knew you either had to change or stay stuck?
Hmm. So this was fairly easy. I was like, no,
I don't
this
think it
isn't
was easy
easy
to
because
change, but easier probably
no,
like
the
of
recognition
course.
of it. Oh God, there were a couple of moments that really
Mm.
highlighted it. I would say a couple
Yeah.
moments that really highlighted it. One was the struggling with my job with COVID because they weren't listening to what I had to say. They weren't
Yeah.
they weren't being accommodating. They were just being really super super difficult. And I was like, wow, okay, so you just don't see me as a human. You see me as a cog in your wheel.
Yeah.
And that frustrated
Fortunately.
me. And then another moment that happened. um, I was driving home, and and I had been stuck in seriously bad traffic, just really bad traffic.
Mm.
And I was getting so frustrated, and I was trying to, and so I jumped off of the highway, and I tried this route and that route, and everywhere I was getting stuck. And I was like, this is just taking forever. I was so angry. I took my hand and I slammed it against the steering wheel, and
Yeah.
a pain exploded in my chest. And
Mm.
I was like, what the? And oh, sorry. And I thought that I was having a heart attack. And so I was like freaked out, and I called my husband, and I was like, I think I have to go to the emergency. I don't know what's going on. There's this pain that just exploded in my chest. Turns out it was this thing called costochondritis. I literally pulled the
Oh,
muscles and the
yeah.
ligaments in
Okay.
my chest. And so it wasn't a heart attack, but it kind of went like, and like I said, with every death I kept having,
Hmm.
those just kept reinforcing a change was needed in the way I was living my course of life, right?
Hmm.
Change was needed. Then I had like this happen and that happened. I had to have my gallbladder removed. I had all this stuff going on, and I was like, I am so stressed, and I am giving it to my son who was an infant at the time, and I'm like, this is not good, you know. And so these little things kept showing up, and I'm going all over the place with my timeline, but these little things that, as I look back in hindsight, they were little indicators on the car of my life. And and they were shining, and I was like, yep, I see you. Okay, I see you.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, I see you too. Okay. All right, the gas tank's empty. Okay, this is,
It's like the check
yeah.
engine light, right?
And it
You
was
can't put a
like
sticker
all
over
these,
it.
yeah, and all these things. And then finally, I said to my husband, I was like, could we live if I jump ship? If I jump ship from my job for a bit to go and make a go of being an entrepreneur, could we survive that? You know, because I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know what it'll take. I don't know all the things that I need to know. And once we figured out we would survive it, I was like, okay. And then it just, you know, and it was this whole thing. And then it kind of culminated in this moment where they were like, all right, you know, my job didn't even give me barely 2 weeks before
Mhm.
they decided, okay, now you have to come back to full-time work in office, when I had situated everything around working from the office. I think I was working from the office at the time, 2 days a week, and working from home 3 days a week.
Mhm.
And they suddenly, it was this 2 week, they were like, all right, now you got to do that. And I'm like, I have a child. I have to you're giving me 2 weeks to try to figure all this out. And I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. And then I was like, nope, I quit. I'm done.
Yeah.
And
That's corporate
it
world.
was a very, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, in the corporate world, they care about the bottom line and they have a
Yeah,
business
and this
to run.
wasn't even a corporate world. This is a nonprofit,
Oh,
federally
wow.
funded, governmental funded agency. You know, it's not it's not always a corporate thing. Sometimes it's simply a systemic thing. Sometimes they've
Yeah.
carved a system out of what they think is going to work for everybody, when what they really need to do is figure out a way. And I used to tell my staff this all the time. We're going to operate in the gray. It's not black and white. For our families that we're serving, it's not black and white. We're going to operate in the gray. We're not going to absolutely, without doubt, you know, mow through the policies, but we're not always going to be capable of adhering to them in the strictest sense possible. And this agency that I was working for, um, and they were a nonprofit, and they were a really big company, could have said like we do want you to come back to the office, but we need, what's your timeline like, you know? They could have worked with me,
Yeah. Work with you instead of
you
against you,
know,
instead of for
instead of
themselves.
against me, instead of just making an explicit law.
Yeah.
And they were coming from a place of fear.
Yeah.
As I tell
Mostly.
everybody,
And control, probably, as you were
a
saying
lot of these
earlier.
companies, and a lot of these companies, these
Yeah.
corporations, these all, whenever a place gets really big, they really work from a place of control and fear.
Yeah.
They really do. And they think they need to control the environment that their employees are in, when what they really need to do is encourage the environment that their employees are in, and give them a space for
Yeah.
growth. I promise you, people will be 10,000 times more dedicated
Oh, I
when you give them
agree.
a space of growth. when you
I
give
a
them a
thousand
space of
percent.
possibility. They're so much more dedicated, so much more. In fact, I know people who work for companies that are trying really hard to do these things, and they're like, I am so dedicated to this place, I'm never leaving.
Yeah.
And a big part of it comes from that place of like, because they see me as a human first and their employee second. But
Yeah,
when you put the employee first and the human second, yeah, you're never gonna, people are never gonna feel seen and heard. And it doesn't mean that you have to adhere to everything your employees want. Of course, there are
of
lots of
course.
people who
Yeah.
go into the world and they're like very unreasonable in their expectations. I see that happen as well, especially in the transactional nature of some of our younger generations, um, who don't really care about the job. And they're like, it's just a job. And that attitude is not healthy either on their end, right?
Yeah,
No, let's help you see this as a community, as a space for growth. But if that place isn't giving them that cultivation of that, then of course they're just going to see it as a job. Oh, it's just a job, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah. I
It,
got to
the,
experience that part where I was seeing more of the employee than the client after the twins. When we lost them, we lost them on Sunday, had the funeral on Tuesday, and I had to go back to work on Thursday because she had a business to run. I was working for a bank, a really big bank in Canada, one of the top five banks. Obviously, I don't legally I can't say, right? You also have non-disclosure shit that they sign, right? Those who know me, they know. And I've always been an understanding person, and I understood that the manager, the way she was raised, honestly, um, was not a very gentle way. Her father was a sergeant, her whole family was in the police force and the work or like insecurities at the bank. So really tough, really strong. And she was an only child as well. So I've always made
mm.
excuses for people, as you can probably hear right now. But it's also not
Uh-huh.
excuses, that's understanding,
Right.
just so I can continue
That's the
living.
empathetic nature. But the problem with an
Yes.
empathetic nature is that you can be overly empathetic to the point,
I
there's
was.
of like suicidal empathy where you are killing yourself at the behest of someone else's
And
needs.
I was really
Yeah.
close. There was going through the dark period
Yeah.
of my life where I came too close.
Yeah.
Stood in front of the cabinet and I just couldn't open it, luckily. And as you say, as I say, the rest is history, and this is why I am here. But the assistant
Mm.
manager was the one that treated me like a human and not an
Mm.
employee. And she was the one that had to call me to ask me to come in. And the I was told afterwards that the moment that I stepped into premises as an employee, I could no longer take maternity leave, which I was actually entitled to because I gave physical birth and I was 22 weeks pregnant and we're entitled to it at 20 weeks. So, in many ways, the manager also
Yeah.
knew, so I got screwed over in the process. But I am also an optimist, so I got to see that
Mm.
if I stayed on maternity leave, my role that I had there, and I was a head teller, which means I was in charge of the tellers, in charge of all the
Uh,
money coming in and out, and doing the bank machines. So my role was actually, which nobody knew, was in the process of being changed. So if I went on maternity leave and came back, my role would have been gone. Somebody else would
uh,
have had my role, so I would have been just a regular cashier and a teller. So that's why I always see like the silver lining, like your son got to
yeah.
see, right? Optimists. It's
Yeah.
great. And this whole
Yeah.
we've also been talking about loss. And on your
Yeah.
journey, what what would you say that you have lost that you
Mm.
didn't expect to grieve?
I lost some friendships.
Yeah.
I've also lost a certain sense of like when you move into a public space, public eye a bit,
Yeah.
there is a weird sense from some people in your life that where they get jealous or they get uh, like intimidated by you or they feel like now I don't know what I can tell her that's gonna what if it makes it into the public, which they should know better. I wouldn't put,
Mhm.
unless they were telling me that I could, I wouldn't put it out there. I've lost that sense of being able to be completely anonymous to where, and believe me, I'm still excessively anonymous to most people. I mean, I'm out in this, nobody knows who I am. out on the street, but it feels a little bit different with some people who know me and who know the things I've accomplished. It's
Yeah.
almost like now they're intimidated by that, and I don't love that because
The
it's
dynamic
hard. I
shift.
didn't expect to have to grieve that, because I'm still just me, and I'm always going to just be me, and for the friendships who've stuck around, and the friendships who've been like you're just you, Yorona, you know it's cool.
Right.
I don't care that you spoke in front of 750,000 people
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. But like they're more like, how was the experience? Like, what was it like?
Yeah.
Instead of like, looking at me from, wow, that's intimidating. And I get a lot of like, oh, I can never do that and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, that's
Well,
cool. No, it's cool that you couldn't do that. And it's cool that you're acknowledging that. Um, but I think it's hard. It's hard in that moment to realize, like, right, people are still always going to be paying close attention to the social belonging sphere. And if you shift in dynamic of your social, where you belong in the social makeup, right? Now you're kind of like pivoting to over here. And they're like, oh, that's intimidating, or that's a little bit, confronting, or I'm a little jealous, or like what's so great about you kind of things, like those attitudes,
yes.
um that can be hard. And then other friendships that I've lost just because that I didn't expect to lose, just because I've grown as a person,
Yeah.
and they haven't, and I've come to the final realization that our friendship was built on time. It wasn't really built on shared values, shared, it was built on time and experience, and time together. It's the cost, the sunk cost fallacy, right?
Yeah.
The time we put into it made the friendship feel more valuable than it actually was. And and losing those has been an eye opener to also wake me up to the realization I don't need that. It's okay. I have a lot of great acquaintances, a lot of people who come and go in my life, and I'm very comfortable with that. And I have a couple of close, very small handful of close people, very
Yeah.
small handful. And the people who really truly know me inside and out and see me for the human, I'd say, see past my exterior to the human inside, to the spiritual being inside.
Yeah.
And those are, I can hold in one hand. And that's cool. I'm good with
I love
that,
that. Me,
you
I
know?
actually live in the same way where it's quality over quantity.
Mm,
And on a hand, I can tell you my closest friends, and I
mm,
really don't need more because you also have to keep up with everyone. And it can
mm.
become like a lot of like,
Yeah.
it can become a full-time job managing these
Yes.
relationships and
Yeah.
staying in the loops with everyone. It can, no, thank
Right.
you.
That's why I see it as circles, right? We've
Yes.
got we it's not just a few circles, it's really a lot of concentric circles. We've got our innermost circle, and then we've got our other circle, and they're more fluid.
Yes.
And then there's the acquaintances that every once in a blue moon we touch base, and then there's the wider grab, big audience. And okay, so as
Yeah.
long as I'm cool with those circles, and making sure that every once in a while I'm touching upon each of them, engaging with each of them here and there,
Hmm.
especially when I think of them. One of the easiest things that I ever found to do is, when you're thinking of someone, when they pop up in your brain, the kindest and nicest thing you can do is send them a message and say, I was just
Yeah.
thinking about you today.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, that's just a really beautiful touchstone of like, hey, you're thought of. Hey, someone's
Yeah.
thinking of you, and it really makes like both the sender and the receiver feel really good,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
often we'll find that they're actually thinking of us at the same time or thought of us that same day. And we're like, oh my God,
Yeah, isn't that
because we
weird?
actually intuitively we are connected. You're talking about
Energies. Yeah.
the umbilical connection, right? I
Yeah.
actually the way that felt the world is that we each and every one of us is literally like walking around like with a string attached to everyone at the same time. And we are
Yeah,
all completely connected. We're almost like
we are.
if you can look inside the body and you can picture all the humans working inside, one
Yep.
body and doing different jobs working bacterias, right? We are the biggest bacteria of this planet, let's be honest. So that's kind of like what it would be. Our body, everything in our body is completely connected. You take Advil, it's for a headache,
Right.
right? Or for a migraine or for aches or pains. It helps with that. But then what
Right.
else is it doing to the rest
Right.
of
Rest
the
of right.
body, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
We are very interconnected, so much more than we realize on this plane of existence, I think.
yeah.
And a lot of us have been able to segregate. And again, that's a survival instinct, right? Hyper fixated on creating distinctive patterns, boxes, labels, identifiers, things like that. And as a result, we sort of separate them. Men are more so towards this. We
Yes.
call it the waffle brain versus
Yeah,
spaghetti
I heard
brain. You
that
ever
one.
hear that one, right?
We're the
And
spaghetti.
I love it. I'm always like, we're women, females are spaghetti. And what's really interesting is that there's also a lot in the neurodiverse community. There's also a lot of evidence of like the spaghetti brain thinking, like ADHD brain. Oh my gosh, that's not just spaghetti. That's spaghetti, and occasionally they throw the meatballs in there, and then
Oh,
sometimes the
yeah, I
the, the
know.
spaghetti wiggles out your ear, and it's like you're
I
like trying to reel it
I
back
live
in.
this. I get it.
Yeah. So what's interesting though is that if we can kind of allow that to meld together in a beautiful way, it's why I believe, it takes both energies, right? It takes the feminine and the masculine.
Yes.
It takes both in order to cohesively, because if we were all spaghetti brained, it would be a different story. If we were all waffle brained, it would be a different story. But the reason we're not in that space is because it requires all of that. It requires the survival brain that needs the pattern recognition, that needs the segregation of things, that needs the labeling and the identifiers. And it requires the growth brain that's a spaghetti mess, that is more comfortable in chaos, and more out of, right, we call it out of the box thinking, right? More just allowing free flow thoughts and chaotic mindset, and just that growth process of curiosity. Where can I go? What can I do? This everything, the sky is the limit. And and not even then. It's a beautiful thing. It requires all of that. The
Yes.
same thing is true of life and death. It requires death in order to appreciate life,
Yes.
and it requires life in order to mourn death, in order to acknowledge and understand death. We need those things. It requires, we cannot stay comfortable in life. It requires struggles in order to grow in life. If we get too complacent, that's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
That's not the way humans actually grow and succeed. It's not the space that humans evolve through. We
Yeah.
evolve through constant change and constant growth and constant learning. And that doesn't happen if we put ourselves into an algorithmic digitization of everything, of I'm in a comfortable zone, and just let everything come to me, come to me, come to me.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as
Yeah.
we move out of that, it requires discomfort
Yes.
to find more comfort. It requires, all of these things, the
Yeah.
yin, the yang, and all that. So,
That's so true. We don't grow in our comfort zones. We don't.
no.
We grow outside of the comfort zones. Period. So for you, what does getting your shit together actually look like right now in real life?
Well, in real life, it looks like I have to go soon because I have a doctor's appointment I have to get to.
Yeah.
But in real life, it looks like recognizing that shit comes
Yes.
regardless, accepting that that comes, making a plan, but not being so stuck to it
Hmm.
that it disrupts everything when the plan goes awry. Not if, when it goes awry. So what I like to do for that, that means that what I generally tend to do is I have like a notepad in front of me with my like five major things that I have to get done for that day,
Hmm.
and with the knowledge, there's a good chance I might not get these done.
Yeah.
There's a
That's my
good
today.
possibility of that,
Yeah,
right?
I told you
This is my
earlier.
today. It may end up being my tomorrow,
Yeah.
and that's okay. If I can get to some of these things, wonderful. If I can get to all of these things, superb. But
Yeah.
I kind of give it these median, these places, right? And if I get to none, I give myself the grace to understand that's because this day wasn't meant for me to get those things done.
Yeah. I love that.
And it's
Yeah.
that's what I do. That's how I function. I literally I'm looking at my thing right here in front of me because I'm
I
like,
feel
yep,
like
I
I'm
gotta
listening to
take care of those
myself.
things. I
Honestly, as
love
you're
it.
talking about these things, I'm like, I do the same thing. I told you
Yeah,
earlier that
yeah,
the me registering the car this morning, the new car, was a shit
yeah,
show. And I'm like, well, now
yeah,
my whole day is like array, and the things that I had planned, I'm not. My attitude is the
yeah.
optimist, right? I look at for the silver lining. If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then Monday. Because the weekends are for me and for my family. I built my business
Mm,
around my life and not my life around my
yeah,
business. I've lived
right.
backwards. This is where the 9 to 5 comes in, where you live building
Yeah,
your life around the business, about the job. Now, no, thank you. So thank you for
no,
sharing that,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'll let you go and just two questions really quickly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's women listening, of course, right? And they
Yes.
want to know, how do they find themselves? How do they get out of these places where they're feeling stuck in the dreaming and the doubting in the overthinking phase? What would you say to her that might finally get her to move to do something that she's not ready to hear?
Mm. Okay. Don't do it. Don't try it alone. If you know you need to move, you need to get unstuck, there's that piece in your body and your soul and your mind and your spirit, wherever that may be, that's existing, that's saying, I can't keep doing this. I
Yeah.
can't keep running this way. Um, the worst thing you can do is try to get unstuck alone, because that won't happen. You will literally get yourself more tangled. It's like if you had a string around you and you're like, how do I get out of this
Like a
thing?
cat
And you just
playing with
tangle.
yarn.
Yeah, you just get it more tangled until you need somebody else to help you tug on that string
Yeah.
and to help you find the starting point and move through that journey. And I don't care how old you are. You could be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. It doesn't matter how old you are. You are never too old to seek help.
Yeah.
Never. You are never too old to seek support. And in fact, the most wisest thing you will do is find support. That is the wisest thing you can do, is find the support. Now, what that support may look like for you might be completely different. It might be Yana, it might be myself, it might be somebody else out there. It doesn't matter about that. The first thing you do is just seek the support. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't try to do anything else. Just look for the person that you make the best connection with.
Yes.
Somebody who you're like, oh, this is somebody who can put a mirror up to me and show
Yeah.
me what I need. Not somebody who's going to tell you what to do. I used to work with an old coach who told me that she would go in and live somebody's life for them and fix their life. I'm like,
You
and
can't
how do
do
they ever?
that.
I'm like, no, how do they live that
That's a
then?
control freak right there.
That's yeah, exactly. I'm like, why would you do such a thing? That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Nobody wants you to live their life for them. And if they do, they're operating at a whole different level where they have given over agency, and they're going to need work on how to find their agency again, how to find their autonomy again. They're going to need that work first before they even start on a journey of growth and self-development. They need to find agency first. So, it may feel easy to just hand your life over to somebody else. Don't do that. The kind of support I'm talking about is somebody who will help you by building scaffolding, a temporary structure to help you build the building. And
Yeah.
once you start to build the building, the scaffolding will fall away. I always say, I think one of my favorite parts about my job is that was when my clients no longer need me, because when they no longer need me, I'm like,
Oh, that's my favorite too.
it's like, yeah, it's wonderful. So that's the kind of person you're looking for. Somebody who's going to be a support structure, not going to try to live it for you, not going to
Yes.
tell you how to do it, because that's how they would do it for themselves. It's not how you would do it for you. The kindest and best structure support is going to show you the reflection you need to be able to see what you need that hasn't been shown clearly enough, that you haven't been able to find internally, that you've been seeking.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I would say. Yeah.
What I'm hearing you say is like find someone who can help you to become independent versus someone who will force you to become dependent. because when
Hmm.
people are doing things for you, you become dependent on it. Whereas there are many others who will help you to see and understand things in your own way. And then
Yep.
you're the one that is doing the work. You're the one that has to get your shit
Right.
together. Nobody can do it for you.
Yeah.
And then you become independent, where we're just,
Yeah.
for how
Yeah.
long, it's entirely up to everyone.
Right. And it depends on what your needs are, right? Your needs are going to
Exactly.
change too, right? So the first step is finding support, experiencing that support, and then coming to the understanding of, okay, what support do I need next? What support do I need next? Now that I've come to this place, what do I need next, right? And
Mhm.
so that might mean you need a business coach, you need a this kind of or that, or you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
which means you start with someone you're comfort that brings you comfort and secure and helps you find a secure place to unpack all of it,
Mhm.
and just do a discovery. Just start to go, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know I needed that. Cool. Okay. All right. So that's something I'm going to need. Oh, let me, okay. Oh, wow. That's also going to be something I'm going to need. Okay. So the first place is to go with somebody who can generally work with that through, work through that with you. And then the next step is getting more specific and more specific and more honed on what support structures you're going to need next, right?
Mhm.
The first thing we start with is the most basic support structure. Then it becomes a lot more like fine tuned depending on your needs. Like
Yeah.
I have an assistant and she's been a marvelous, she's just been marvelous for these last couple of years. And I could not do what I do without her. But at the same time, I also know that that's not true. I
Yeah.
could,
It would just take more
because
time.
because it would take a little bit more time, but it's because of the way we function together.
Mhm.
She's assisting and supporting me, but she's not hindering me in growing
Yeah.
for myself. And that's really, really helpful. So when if it ever happened that I would lost her, I would find my way because she hasn't hemmed me in. She hasn't put me in a place where I wouldn't understand things. And the
Yeah.
same thing is true, bosses, both superiors and subordinates, like we
Yeah.
have different. So if you're choosing to stay with your job, but you just need to find something else, another path that might open up, that's a whole different story. And you need to just work on discovering that with somebody.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
What would you say? My last question is for you. What part of yourself are you finally allowing to exist without trying to fix, hide, or prove it to anyone anymore?
That part of myself would be the calm, the slower, the
Mm,
peaceful place in me.
yes.
When I was a kid, I always, my mother used to say, like, if you're not being productive, you're lazy, you know?
Yep.
And
Europeans.
it's, and I had to learn to let go and realize that I could be productive in peace. I could be productive and calm. I could slow down. And I love this
Mm,
part of me that's now finally had the ability to surface
yeah.
because I haven't tamped her down. That part of me that goes, you know what? Just sit in the kitchen and have a cup of coffee this morning. It's cool. Just look out the door, look out the patio doors, listen to
Yeah.
the birds chirp, play with your new cat. It's like,
Right?
cool. Just
Be
just hang
we're
here.
human beings, not human doings.
I love that saying. I hear it all the time these days.
It,
It's one of my
it's so
favorites.
true. We
Right. We don't
forget.
have to, right. And so letting go of that part of me that thought I had to constantly be productive has actually allowed me to be more productive.
Right? Isn't that crazy? When you let go of control, all of a sudden you have more control.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And more, but the calm too, like having that part of me that's always wanted to naturally calm down and just
Mm.
chill. Gosh, having her come out of me, having that part, I'm just like, I am so content right now.
Where
Oh,
has she been all these years, right?
and I'm just breathing deeper with her and going like, girl, take
Oh,
a deep breath. Life is good.
right?
And yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. Thank you for your answer. I know you have your appointment. I know we went past our time, and
Ah,
sometimes
it's all good.
just click and there's so much
I
magic
know.
happens. I'm just like listening, leaning in, taking some notes. I learned from you ladies that come on here, and I love it. Right?
Mm.
And it's amazing. I wouldn't have it any other way. So thank you so much, Yorona, for sharing your
Mm.
journey so openly and so freely today and your light. Go check her out. Her information, show her some love as well. Follow her on the socials. All the links that she shared with me are down below the podcast. You'll find it. You don't have to look really deep. It'll be highlighted links, so easy to click and follow. And follow her and see if she's the one that can actually help you to get to where you want to get to. As Yorona was talking earlier, it's like you got to start somewhere. Start with one person, one thing you want to do, one place. It's like getting into the pool. So not everybody jumps right into the deep end. You sometimes got to check the water and then walk in until you are ready to get into that deep end. And if this episode hit home, then share with the woman who needs to hear it, but not be might not be ready to actually hear it just yet. Join us also in the Heal a Unicorn Facebook group where I do live card readings on Mondays, every Monday. And it's a really fun time. I enjoy them myself, right? Deck of cards, talking about cards. That's why I say the mindset is a deck of cards, whether it's
Yeah.
tarot cards or oracle cards. It's up to us, and we can change those cards. Now, show us also some love and subscribe down below so that way you don't miss another episode because these new series of Your Journey of Becoming, they drop every Saturday morning, and others like this one right now, they go live first on my personal Facebook page and then they get uploaded because not all of them are actually live. So until next time, keep showing up, keep becoming. You are not behind. You are not too old or too young. You
Mm.
are not too late, and you did not miss the train. You are right on time. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Arona. And until we see each other next time, have an amazing rest of your day and week. Bye, everybody.